Okay, here's the thing. You, dear viewer, are not having a strange sense of deja vu. Yes, there has already been a video called Mechanical Settings Pipes. But in this chapter, we're dealing with plumbing pipework, and while some of the settings may be the same, the actual system we're setting up is aimed at plumbing rather than hydronics. So let's get straight into it and open the file Chapter 12 Plumbing from your Chapter 12 folder. In this exercise, I'm going to re-examine the mechanical settings for pipework. So from your Systems tab, click on the little arrow that's associated with the Plumbing and Piping panel. As stated in other videos, the dialog box that's accessed here is exactly the same as the dialog box that's accessed from the mechanical panel and the HVAC panel. When creating plumbing pipework, we're generally talking about domestic hot and cold water and sanitary pipework, so we can ignore the duct settings and look at the pipe settings. At the top of this tree, we have some default settings that cover all types of pipework. It doesn't matter whether it's for hydronics, for fire protection, for domestic hot and cold water. This governs how we see all our pipework. Let's take a look at the main and the branch runs in a little bit more detail. Here I've got a system type. It's domestic hot water. We can set the pipe type to water, and its default offset from the working level is 2750. We'll match the branch for domestic hot water in the same way. Now let's look at domestic cold water. We'll change the pipe type again. Go back to main. Click on domestic cold water. Click on pipe types water. Finally, we'll look at sanitary. For the main run, we've got pipe types PVC sanitary. And we'll also check that for the branch. One thing I haven't done though is the offset for the current level. We can create a default offset of -400, as that's where most of the pipework is going to be, below the actual grade. Segments and sizes. Well, this defines the actual material for the pipes. So we've got plastic, ductile iron, stainless steel, and all their relevant sizes. Fluids that have been defined in this project. We currently have water. If we want to, we can add to this list and add things like medical gases. And finally, slopes. Here we can define the default slopes that we use in our projects. Having the defaults set up in your company template will mean that all your results are consistent. And this is crucial for the successful operation of a complex program. Let's take another look at that Chapter 12 plumbing file located in your Chapter 12 folder. From the project browser, scroll down until you find Families. Expand the Families selection and scroll down in there until you come to Piping Systems. Expanding the piping systems gives us a list of all the piping systems defined in our project. In this exercise, we're concerned with the domestic cold water, domestic hot water, sanitary, and vent. Let's take a look at these systems in more detail. If I select the domestic cold water, I can right-click, click on Type Properties, and I can now change things like the graphic overrides. For domestic cold water, let's make the pipes blue. We'll use a weight 3 for the line weight, and we'll leave the line pattern with no override. We can choose what calculations we want to do, the fluid type and the fluid temperature, and the abbreviation DCW. Click on OK. Let's repeat that for the domestic hot water. Graphic overrides. Let's change the weight to 3 again. and this time we'll make the pipes red. And the abbreviation. Finally, the sanitary. Type properties. Let's make the colour green. And the abbreviation. So let's take a look at what happens if we draw those pipes. I'll click on the pipe tool, select my pipe system, and create the pipe in plan. Let's just make sure that we can see it. So this message means that I can't see them currently. Let's take a look and find out why. I'll go to the View tab, click on Visibility Graphics. If I scroll down in here, we can see that we have pipes visible. So let's check filters. In here we've got a filter that says domestic. Let's look at what that filter does. The domestic filter filters system classification containing domestic. So anything that has domestic in its name won't be displayed. Let's turn the sanitary one on as well. So I can now see my domestic cold water pipe. Let's try that again, this time using domestic hot water. And finally, the sanitary pipe. So you can see that the initial setup is going to make working on the project a lot easier, as these settings can be used again and again in all your new projects. For this exercise, we're going to use the Chapter 12 Adding Plumbing Fixtures project file located in the folder Chapter 12. There are two ways to add plumbing fixtures into your file. The first is to click on Systems and then click on Plumbing Fixture. You can then select the plumbing fixture you want to use, and dependent upon the hosting, go and place your family where it's required. The other method comes under the Collaborate toolbar. Just as we use the Copy Monitor tool to copy and monitor levels and grids, we can also do the same with some of the MEP objects. So in this exercise, that's just what we're going to do. But wait, have we forgotten something? How do we know that there's actually any plumbing fixtures in the linked architectural file for us to copy monitor? I can find that out by clicking on the Reveal Hidden Elements button at the bottom of the View control bar. Clicking on that shows me the plumbing fixtures in the linked file. And all I have to do now is create a copy of them in my file. Click on Copy Monitor from the Collaborate tab, select your link, and then click on Batch Copy. The file tells me that there are new uncopied fixtures that have been found in the linked model. And what would I like to do? So I can either specify the type mapping behavior and copy fixtures, or just copy the fixtures. Let's see what happens with the first option. Here I get the choice for plumbing fixtures and for any of the other fixtures, how we copy those objects, whether we copy them by batch or copy them individually. And then we also have the mapping behavior. Do I want to copy the original, or do I want to specify a type mapping? This allows me to select in the linked model the family and the type, and then in my host model I can choose to copy the original, don't copy it, or select from the families I already have in my project. So let's go with the batch copy, and we'll copy the fixtures. This has now copied the fixtures into my project, and if I select one of them, we can see that we've got the Copy Monitor symbol. So if the architect moves the model in his file, I can then see those objects change location in my file. So now I've finished with that selection, I can click on Finish from the Copy Monitor toolbar. For this exercise, we're going to use the file Chapter 12 Pipes. At a conceptual stage of your project, using pipe placeholders may be a better alternative to placing fully grown pipes. Let's use the pipe placeholder. We have exactly the same tools in terms of size, offset, and pipe types. When we create a pipe placeholder, however, the pipe placeholder doesn't have fittings in the same way that a full pipe does. This makes them very easy to manipulate. I can still use the tab Select for the run, yet when that run is selected, I have grip points that allow me to adjust that run very easily. This would be much harder if these were full pipes. Once I've got through the conceptual stage and my pipe run is ready to be used, I can convert that run using the Convert Placeholder tool. It's a good idea to leave this as long as possible, as once you've changed those to full pipes, there's no going back. These pipe placeholders contain all the information that a full pipe does, with the exception of pipe justification and the ability to add insulation. From your startup screen, click on Open, browse to your Chapter 12 folder, and open the file Chapter 12 Pipes. In the project browser, scroll down until we find our Level 1 piping plan and make sure it's the active view. Now here's a tip for actually finding your views with a lot more ease. If you're finding that you're having to continually scroll down in the project browser to find your views, just compact the rest of them, because we're only interested in plumbing right now. From the Systems tab, click on Pipe. Check my pipe size from the Options toolbar, its offset from the current level, and the pipe properties. We can also pick up the system type. Scroll into the south part of the building and start drawing my pipe run. Press Escape to finish. It couldn't be easier. There are, of course, other factors to take into consideration, like at this stage of the project, do we really want to have a sloping pipe system? And do we want to coordinate with the other services right at this point in time? Another way to create your pipe run is to actually draw straight from the unit that you're connecting into. How can you do that if you can't actually see it in plan? If I hover over it, I can just about see it and connect into it. But let's try something else. If I select the object I want to connect to, you can see the connectors and their service. So I can just click Create Pipe. You can see that we're creating the domestic hot water pipe, and I can start drawing my pipework. And if I connect into an existing pipe, then Revit will give me transitions, rises, and automatically any transitions if there's a change in size. The transition may not always be in the place that you'd expect it to be. So let's just undo a couple of steps and try something a little bit different. From the Modify tab, click on Split Element, split the existing pipe up here, click on Modify, and now change the end pipe segment. And we'll change this to 15 millimeters. We now have a transition, and if I draw my pipework again from the base, we get a nice connection, and the transition actually ends up where it's supposed to be. From your startup screen, click on Open, browse to your Chapter 12 folder, and open up the file Chapter 12 Parallel Pipes. There are tools within MEP that will allow you to greatly enhance your workflow. Let's take this pipe run for example. At the early stage of the design, I may actually want to create a bank of pipes. For ease of use, I'm going to disconnect this pipe from the run I created in another exercise. Now I can use the Parallel Pipe tool. Click on Parallel Pipes, and then from the Modify tab, choose how many pipes I wish to see horizontally and vertically, and choose an appropriate offset. By the way, I do know that this is going to cause problems, but I just want to show this for illustrative purposes only. So in my plan, I can just select one pipe, or I can use the Tab key to select my run. With the run selected, just click. And this creates my parallel pipes. Click on Modify to end the command. And now let's go to our plumbing isometric. This view, as you can see, has been cropped and we can only see a part of the 3D view. In your Properties palette, scroll down until you find Section Box and uncheck it. As we can see in here, we now have our runs of pipes. All that we have to do now is coordinate them with the rest of the building services. In this exercise, we're going to see what happens when changes are made by the architect that reflect on copy and monitored plumbing fixtures. To do this, open up the Chapter 12 Modifying Plumbing Fixtures file from your Chapter 12 folder, and we're going to simulate the architect sending us an updated model. From the Manage tab, click on Manage Links. Here we've got our revised architectural file, which is about to be revised again. So what I want to do is select it and click on Reload From. Browse to your Chapter 12 folder and select the Architecture link Revised Toilet Update. We get a message saying an instance of a linked RVT file needs coordination review, so we do need to do something about this. Click on OK. We now have the link file updated, and click on OK to finish. So now what happens? We need to go to the Collaborate tab and click on Coordination Review. I need to select the linked file, and here we can see we've got some new and unresolved issues that we need to do something about. We can expand these to see what's going on. If you're not sure what to do, you can create a report. Click on Create Report, and you can save this file as an HTML file. You can then email this to the architect and discuss the issues that you're having. So we've discussed the issues, and these are the architectural changes. Here it says an element has been deleted. There's a deleted element there from the architectural link. If I click on the element from my file, it displays it in the plan. What action do I want to take? Let's delete the element. We'll do the same with the bottom one. And we'll delete the element. In these other issues, we've got changes in position. So we're going to move those elements so that they match the objects in the architect's file. If we click on Apply, those changes will be shown in our floor plan. Now that we've changed our layout to match the architect's, we can click on OK and carry on with our design, knowing that the location of our plumbing fixtures matches that of the architect's. From your Startup screen, click on Open, browse to your Chapter 12 folder, and open the file Chapter 12 Piping Systems. In this exercise, we're going to create a sanitary system and a hot and cold water system. From the Level 1 piping plan, scroll into the south side of the building. In previous exercises, we've seen that we can select an element and create piping systems. We can do exactly the same if we group all the objects in one hit. Do a selection window around the objects where I want to create a system. If the Create Systems option doesn't appear, click on Filter and filter just for plumbing fixtures. I can now create piping systems. At this point, I'll go for sanitary. Let's call it Level 1, South, Waste. Click on OK. The system now takes on the colour from the systems that were defined in our project browser. Let's repeat that. If I right-click and select Previous, I'll pick up my previous selection set, but in this case I've selected the sanitary system rather than the objects themselves. So I'll do my selection window again, repeat the filter, just go for plumbing fixtures, and create systems. Domestic cold water, level 1, south, cold water, or CWS. Click on OK. Notice how the objects have turned black. This can have one of two meanings. Either they're not connected to any system, or they're connected to multiple systems. Finally, I'm going to go for the domestic hot water. At this point, I'm going to select one of the plumbing fixtures, click on Create Systems, use the domestic hot water, give it a name, level 1, south, domestic hot water, and this time I'm going to open in the system editor, and I'm going to add to the system. I'll add the other two sinks. Notice that we now have a warning. I've selected an element that is already part of another system. They will be removed from the original system and added to this one. In a previous exercise, we drew a pipe from the hot water connection. That automatically added this sink to a default piping system. Once completed, I can click on Finish Editing System. Let's just remove the Properties palette, click on View, and go to my system browser, so I can check the systems that I've just created. The systems are set to piping. I can expand these to see domestic cold water. There's my domestic cold water, level 1 south, my domestic hot water. There's my level 1 south with the elements, and my sanitary system, level 1 south waste. For this exercise, open up the file, Chapter 12, Generating Pipe Layouts. Ensure that you have level 1 piping plan open and that you zoom into the south side of the building. Let's start the exercise by generating a pipe layout for our domestic hot water. I'm going to select one of the objects, and then from the Conceptual tab, click on Generate Layout. I'm going to select level 1 south domestic hot water and check some of the settings. I've got my domestic hot water. The main is running at 2750. Let's just push that up to 3 meters. And the same with the branch. And check out our solutions. If the solutions don't work, try the next ones. Where you can see an orange line, this means that the layout won't work at all. This is beginning to be a bit more like it, but I still want to make some changes. So let's edit the layout and select one of the lines. We'll drag those into the middle of the riser. This seems to be working for me, so let's click on Finish Layout. At this scale, we can't really see what's going on, so we really need to have a clearer view of this area. From the View tab, click on Callout. I'm not actually going to use the callout for any documentation purposes. I'm going to use it to view the 3D model in more detail. I can double-click on the callout head, and it will take me to the view. What I want to do here, however, is go to my Plumbing Isometric, right-click on the View cube, orient to a view, which is a floor plan, and my callouts of level 1 piping plan. This has now orientated my 3D view so that I can see how my piping layout looks. And I'll possibly want to make some adjustments from here, as this layout is a little bit impractical. Let's go back to level 1 piping plan and try the same with the waste. I can select one of the WCs and click on Generate Layout. I'm going to go with level 1 south waste, and again cycle through the options that I've been given. just check my settings. Let's change these to see if they make any difference. And try the different solutions. And none of these really seem to be working for me. So I do have another option. I can place a base. This establishes a source point where my drain will fall to. Let's put that at the same level as the other pipes and go back to the solutions and see whether this has helped. And you can see that it hasn't really. Here we've got a layout that may work, but we've got some options with these yellow lines. Let's just modify that base and go back to the solutions. Here we may get something that actually works, except I can see a problem here. If I click on Finish Layout, Revit will give me a layout, or it might not. The problem here is I'm trying to be too complex. I'm in no way trying to bag the software for not being able to generate a layout for me, but there are certain limits. So really the message here is, by all means use the Generate Layout tool, as long as it's not going to take you longer than putting it in by hand. Otherwise you start losing all the efficiencies of the software.